There is a ghost that follows you. You have felt it in the stillness of a sleepless night, in the sudden quiet between thoughts. It is not a ghost of a person, but of a memory, an old shame, a fear that has worn your face for so long, it has almost become you. You have carried this shadow for years, perhaps for a lifetime. You have built your walls against it, you have run from it, you have made 1,000 treaties with it, and yet it remains. It is the one battle you have always lost. And so, you have learned to live with the enemy inside your own gates, a constant, quiet surrender that drains the very color from your soul. But I say to you now, this ceaseless war must end. Tonight you must not flee. Tonight you must not negotiate. Tonight you must turn and face it and fight your last battle. There is a wound that you carry not on your skin but deep in the fabric of your being. You have spent a lifetime trying to outrun it, to silence its ache with ambition, to bury it under a mountain of achievements, to numb its whisper in the roar of the crowd. You call it by many names: your past, your failure, your shame, that one defining moment when the world went dark and you were forged in the fire of a pain you never chose. You treat it as a flaw in your foundation, a crack you must forever hide, the one part of you that must never ever see the light. But I tell you, you are wrong. You have misunderstood the entire architecture of the soul. That wound is not a flaw, it is the sacred site. It is the very ground upon which you must build the cathedral of your life. Consider the nature of a building. It requires a hollow, an empty space to become a place of shelter and meaning. A solid block of marble cannot house a spirit. It is the void carved within it that creates the chamber, that allows for the echo of a prayer, the entry of light. Your darkness, that very shadow you so desperately flee, is that necessary hollow? It is not your enemy. It is your potential. For years you have been trying to build your life on the flat, sunlit plains of your strengths, your virtues, your acceptable qualities. And you wonder why the structure feels so fragile, so hollow, so easily shaken by the storms of fate. It is because you have built on a lie of completeness, ignoring the very chasm that gives you depth. The work before you is not one of eradication, but of integration. This is the great alchemy of the psyche. You must take the lead of that old pain and begin the slow, deliberate work of turning it into the cornerstone. You must sit with your shadow in the quiet hours and ask it, not with anger, but with a curious courage, what it has come to teach you. What strength was born from that fracture? What profound empathy grew from that humiliation? What relentless drive was ignited in that coldness of abandonment? The qualities you value most in yourself, I would wager, are not the ones that were given to you freely in the light, but the ones you were forced to forge in that secret. Inner smithy of suffering, do not seek to fill this space. Do not seek to pave it over with platitudes and false positivity. That is the way of the coward, and it leads only to a life of perpetual, low-grade fear. Instead, you must honor the space, you must build within it. Raise the pillars of your newfound resilience from the bedrock of that old despair. Let the stained glass windows of your compassion be fashioned from the shattered pieces of your heart. Allow the vaulted ceiling of your wisdom to arc over the memory of your ignorance. Every memory of being lost becomes a direction you can now offer to others. Every echo of your fear becomes a note in a deeper understanding of courage. This is how a soul is built, not through the simple accumulation of happy moments, but through the conscious, willful transformation of every experience, especially the bitter ones, into a part of a meaningful whole. You stop being a victim of your history and become the architect of its meaning. The shadow does not disappear. It becomes the defining contrast that makes the light within your cathedral so profound, so beautiful, and so truly, authentically yours. So let the old war end tonight. Lay down the weapons of denial and run no more. Turn and face the hollow, dark, and silent place within you. For it is waiting, not to destroy you, but to give your life its final and most significant form. And yet, even as you contemplate this sacred architecture of your own wounds, you must ask, who laid the first stone? From whose quarry did this dark, foundational rock come? We like to believe we are self-created, that our psyche is built only upon our own lived experiences. But this is an illusion of the most modern and naive kind. If you listen closely, you will hear that the echoes in your cathedral are not only yours, they are the whispers of your ancestors. You are living a story that began long before you took your first breath, a narrative written in the invisible ink of forgotten triumphs and ancestral tears, a script you have been handed and perform every day, believing it to be your own original creation. This is the invisible architecture of your life, the unseen foundation, the hidden beams, the ghost in the very walls of your identity. These are the stories that were never spoken aloud, but were passed down through the silence. The unspoken pact of stoicism after a great-grandfather's bankruptcy. The legacy of fear from a grandmother who knew true hunger. The unattained ambitions of a parent laid upon your shoulders like a mantle you never asked for. You have inherited not just their names and their genes, but their unresolved conflicts, their repressed fears, their unlived lives. They sit within you, a silent council of ghosts, shaping your desires, your anxieties, the very patterns of your love and your retreat. You call these patterns your personality, your nature. But I tell you, much of it is not yours. It is a debt you did not incur, a burden you were handed in the cradle. You fight the same battles they lost. You flee from shadows they cast. You yearn for loves that they were denied. You are living a myth, but it is an old, recurring, and often tragic myth that belongs to your lineage. And until you bring this myth into the light of your own consciousness, you are doomed to repeat its verses, to play a part in a play whose ending was written generations ago. The task, then, is not to blame them, but to liberate yourself. It is to become the conscious archaeologist of your own bloodline. You must descend into that silent, ancestral chamber within your own soul and meet these ghosts. You must listen to their stories, not as a passive heir, but as a curious, compassionate scholar. You must acknowledge their pain, honor their struggle, and then, with the fierce authority of your own awakened will, you must do what they could not. You must feel the feeling they repressed. You must speak the truth they swallowed. You must grieve the loss they numbed. In doing so, you do not erase them. You redeem them. You complete the unfinished symphony of their existence with the unique melody of your own life. This is how you rewrite the story. This is how you change the ending. You take the old, faded parchment of your familial destiny, and you begin to write over it with the bold, fresh ink of your own conscious choices. You break the chain not by denying it, but by transforming its weakest link, which is you, here. Now, in your full awareness, you transform the inherited curse into a chosen challenge, the ancestral wound into a wellspring of profound understanding. So let us go beyond building from our own personal shadows. Let us now exercise the older, deeper ghosts. For the war you fight tonight is not merely your own, it is the final, resonant battle in a war that has been waged for generations. and the peace you forge will echo backwards through time, silencing the old cries, and forwards into a future you have finally, truly begun to author yourself. And now, having met the ghosts of your lineage and acknowledged the sacred hollow of your own wounds, you might hope to find a singular, unified self waiting in the quiet. Instead, you find only more voices, a chorus of conflicting desires, a parliament of contradictory selves. The ambitious driver, the fearful child, the critical parent, the creative dreamer, all clamoring for control, creating a cacophony that feels not like a symphony, but a riot in the soul. You believe this inner chaos is a sign of your failure, your lack of discipline, a problem to be solved by silencing all but one dominant voice. But once again, your perception is inverted. This is not your breakdown. This is the raw, unorchestrated material of your genius. You see, the goal is not to find one true, monolithic self. That is a fantasy of the ego, a desperate grab for a simplicity that does not exist in the living universe. A tree is not a single root, but a network. A forest is not one tree, but a thriving, interdependent community. So, too, is your psyche. The chaos you feel is the vibrant, messy, and life-giving energy of your full potential, still untamed and unconducted. The critical parent holds the power of discernment. The fearful child holds the gift of intuition and self-preservation. The creative dreamer holds the vision for a future that does not yet exist. To exile any of them is to lobotomize your own soul, to make yourself small and safe and terribly, tragically dull. Your task is to cease being a tyrant and to become a conductor. You must stand before this unruly orchestra of your being not with a whip, but with a baton. You must learn the unique timbre of each inner voice, not to play them all at once in a screaming dissonance, but to understand which instrument must carry the melody in this moment of your life, and which must provide the quiet, supporting harmony. The drive for ambition is necessary for the day's work, but it must not be allowed to play its furious trumpet in the quiet hours of the night, when the gentle flute of rest must be heard. The voice of the inner critic is a valuable editor, but it must not be permitted to stand on the podium during the first, fragile birth of a new idea. This is the highest artistry, the composition of a soul. It requires you to listen with a profound and non-judgmental patience to the discord within you, to invite the angry one forward to speak its piece, to allow the sorrowful one to sing its lament, not to let them rule, but to let them be heard. In that hearing, they transform. Their raw, chaotic energy is refined into a unique note in the greater composition of your life. What was once a screaming fear becomes the keen alertness that protects your boundaries. What was once a frantic ambition becomes the steady rhythm that drives your purpose. What was once a shout of grief becomes the poignant melody that gives your joy its depth and meaning. Do not seek to simplify yourself. Do not crave a false peace that is merely the silence of exile and suppression. Instead, pick up the baton. Gather your inner multitude. Your power does not lie in choosing one voice, but in mastering the art of blending them all into a singular, complex, and breathtakingly beautiful piece of music that could only be played by you. The stage is set, the players are waiting, and the first note hangs in the balance of your next conscious breath dot. And so you stand, the conductor of your own nascent symphony, listening to the intricate themes of your being, yet a profound disquiet may now arise. For the score before you is not clearly written, the melody ahead is not yet composed. You have followed the maps you were given, the path of convention, the well-trodden road of expectation, only to find they lead to a destination that feels hollow, a life that belongs to someone else. You feel a terrifying urge to step off this clear, paved highway and into a trackless wilderness within. This you fear is to be lost. This, you whisper, is failure. But I tell you, the clear path is the illusion. It is the wide gate that leads to the borrowed life. The only path that is truly yours is the one that is unlit, overgrown, and forgotten, the labyrinth that leads not out. But in dot, we are taught from childhood to navigate by external stars, the approval of others, the milestones of status, the brittle compass of collective opinion. We spend our energy illuminating this borrowed path, terrified of the shadows that pool just beyond its edges. But the soul has its own magnetic north, and it does not point toward the crowd. It points toward the center of your own unique, inexplicable existence. To follow it, you must willingly enter the labyrinth of your own confusion, your own not knowing, your own deepest fears. You must abandon the familiar map and trust the faint, inner stirring that your logical mind dismisses as foolishness. This is not a descent into madness. It is the ascent into authenticity. The minotaur waiting in the center of this labyrinth is not a monster to be slain, but a mystery to be embraced. It is the totality of what you are, the final, terrifying integration of all you have carried, the ancestral ghosts, the personal wounds, the chaotic symphony of selves. The world calls this being lost. I call it the only true navigation. Every false path you took was a reaction to an external signpost. The unlit path is a response to an inner calling. It feels like wandering because it is not linear. It circles back upon itself. It descends into cellars of memory you had sealed shut. It climbs to dizzying heights of potential you were afraid to claim. You must become comfortable with the dark. You must learn to see by touch, by intuition, by the faint echo that returns from the walls of your own being. This is how you find your way, not by following a light, but by becoming a light in the very darkness that once terrified you. The thread you follow is not one of certainty, but of feeling. It is the subtle vibration of aliveness, the quickening of your pulse, when you brush against a truth that is yours alone, even if that truth seems foolish or unprofitable to the world outside. Do not mistake the labyrinth for a prison. It is the womb of your rebirth. Its twisting passages are designed not to trap you, but to strip you of everything that is not essential, to sand away the false identities until only the polished core remains. To reach the center is not to find an answer, but to become the question that your life was meant to embody. So let the old maps burn. Extinguish the lanterns that cast only familiar shadows. The darkness ahead is not your enemy. It is the deepest, most truthful part of your own soul, waiting to finally greet you, not as you were supposed to be, but as you truly are. And now, having entered the sacred darkness of your own labyrinth, you will discover the most formidable adversary of all. It does not roar from the shadows, it whispers, it flickers, it fragments the very air around you. It is the tyranny of the scattered mind, the relentless pull of 10,000 trivial things. We have mistaken this constant diversion for the nature of modern life, but I tell you, it is something far more profound and ancient. It is the primal resistance of the unconscious against the conscious, the last-ditch effort of the old, frightened self to avoid the profound silence in which your transformation occurs. This distraction is not merely an inconvenience, it is the leaden weight that sinks the soul, the base metal that must be transmuted into the gold of unwavering presence. We flee into the noise because we are afraid of the signal. We drown in the shallow waters of information because we are terrified of the depths of knowing. Every ping, every notification, every new demand is a siren call away from the one thing that truly matters, the slow, deliberate, and painful work of forging consciousness in the furnace of your own attention. To be distracted is to remain unconscious. To be present is to accept the terrifying responsibility of your own existence. This is the great alchemy, to take the base, leaden ore of a fragmented awareness, and through the heat of your own focus, will transform it to the gold of a unified, purposeful being. Your attention is the philosopher's stone. It is the sacred fire that alone can perform this miracle. But you have given it away so freely, bartered it for cheap amusement and the illusion of connection. You have allowed your most sacred resource, the very currency of your soul, to be stolen, scattered to the winds. You must reclaim it. This is not a practice of mere productivity, it is a spiritual discipline of the highest order. To choose where you place your attention is to choose which version of yourself you will feed, which reality you will inhabit. When you place it upon the chaos of the world, you become chaotic. When you place it upon the fear within, you become fear. But when you gather it, like a lens focusing the rays of the sun, upon the truth of this single present moment, you ignite. You burn away what is false. Begin with the small things. The next time you feel the pull to escape into your device, into worry, into any thought that is not rooted in the here and now, pause. In that pause, in that sacred refusal, you perform the alchemy. You take the leaden impulse of distraction and you transmute it into the golden moment of choice. You feel the weight of your boredom, your anxiety, your restlessness, and you hold your attention there, not fleeing, not judging, simply being present with the raw, unadorned reality of your experience. This is the work. This is how the lead becomes gold, not in a single glorious explosion, but in 1,000 tiny, invisible moments of courageous return. The symphony of yourselves cannot be conducted in a storm of distraction. The path through your labyrinth cannot be found with a flickering torch. You must become a flame that burns steady in the wind, a focus so intense it cuts through the noise of a lifetime. For the kingdom of heaven, the wholeness of the self, is not found in the next moment, but in the depth of this one, if you have the courage to pay it the ultimate price of your entire, undivided attention. So let the world clamor, let the distractions beat against the walls of your resolve like a sudden rain. Your power does not lie in stopping the storm, but in becoming the eye of the storm, the still, silent, and unbreakable center where the alchemy of your soul is finally and forever accomplished. And now, having forged your attention in the fire of presence, you face the final, most subtle ghost one that does not haunt from the ancestral past, but from the collective future. It is the specter of the machine, the shimmering, logical, flawless intelligence we have summoned into our world. We look into its perfect mirrors and feel a creeping dread, a question that chills the soul. In a world of artificial minds, what becomes of the human soul? We fear it will replace us, overshadow us, render our messy, emotional, mortal journey obsolete. But I tell you, this is a profound misreading of the omen. The machine is not the final chapter of our story. It is the great, stark, and necessary catalyst that forces us to remember the one thing it can never possess. The ghost in the machine is not the AI. The ghost is *U*. It is your consciousness, your suffering, your love, your irrational and boundless capacity for meaning. The rising tide of synthetic intelligence does not threaten the soul, it reveals it. For the first time, we are confronted with a creation that can mimic thought, but cannot know being, that can process data, but cannot feel wonder, that can optimize for efficiency, but cannot choose sacrifice. It holds up a cold, clear glass to everything we have taken for granted, and in its reflection we see the stunning, incalculable value of all that we are. We have become so accustomed to the utilities of our own minds, thinking, calculating, problem solving, that we have forgotten the sacred depths from which these utilities spring. The machine is the ultimate externalization of the utilitarian mind. It is the persona of humanity stripped of its shadow, its anima, its self, and in its flawless operation, it screams a silent question back at us: if thinking can be automated, what is the purpose of your consciousness? The answer is not to compete with the machine, but to become more fully what the machine can never be. It forces us to dive into the very waters it cannot navigate, the waters of poetry, of ambiguity, of grief that opens the heart, of joy that serves no function, of a love that is not a transaction, but a transformation. Your task is not to fight the machine, but to use its emergence as the final, urgent reason to fully incarnate, to choose the messy, aching, glorious experience of a flesh and blood existence over the clean, cold piece of the algorithm. The battle for your soul was never louder than it is now, not because the noise of the world is greater, but because the alternative to your soul is now sitting before you, offering a seductive, soulless peace. Do not flee from this new shadow. Do not rage against it. Instead, let its presence be the fire that forges your own soul awareness to a sharper, more brilliant edge. Let it force you to cherish your tears, to honor your intuition, to embrace the beautiful, inefficient, and deeply human process of becoming. The machine calculates, but you must contemplate. It has information, but you must have wisdom. It replicates, but you must originate. For the ultimate purpose of this great shadow we have cast is to finally and forever teach us what the light truly is. And so we arrive at the final, most terrifying and most necessary truth. We have spoken of building cathedrals from our wounds, of rewriting ancestral stories, of conducting our inner symphonies. We have navigated the unlit labyrinth and faced the ghost in the machine. But all of this work, this fierce striving of the will, this conscious battle leads here to this precipice. It leads to the ultimate paradox that your greatest power is not found in holding on, but in a final, profound, and total letting go. You must learn the courage of the seed. Consider the seed. It is a perfect, self-contained universe. It has an identity, a structure, a defined form. It can cling to this form. It can remain safe, hard, and separate in the dark. It can remain a seed forever. But if it wishes to become what it is destined to be, it must consent to its own dissolution. It must surrender every boundary it has ever known. It must allow the dark, damp soil to soften its shell. It must permit its very core to break open, to disintegrate into a formless, chaotic pulp. In the eyes of the seed, this is death. There is no vision of the stalk, the leaf, the flower. There is only the utter annihilation of everything it once knew itself to be. Your journey is the same. You have spent a lifetime building a self, fortifying an identity, constructing a personality strong enough to withstand the world. You call this your strength. And now, I tell you that this very structure is the final shell that must be broken. The ego, the conscious I, that has fought so bravely, must now, like the seed, consent to its own humble cracking. All the light you have gathered, all the wisdom you have earned, all the power of your focused attention, you must now offer it back to the darkness. You must fall apart. This is not the failure you fear. It is not a regression into madness or despair. It is the sacred act of composting the self. It is the return of the individual drop to the ocean, not to be annihilated, but to become the ocean. The courage required for this is beyond all other courage. It is the courage to trust the process of life itself, to believe that the intelligence that designed the seed and the stalk is also operating within you. You are not falling into nothingness. You are falling into a different kind of order, a wholeness that cannot be constructed by the will, but can only be grown from the surrender of the will. The symphony must release its individual notes to become the silence that contains all music. The labyrinth must be left behind to become the open field. The gold of your alchemical attention must be melted down again to flow into the streams of a life greater than your own. You are not losing yourself. You are outgrowing yourself. So tonight, as you face your last battle, understand that the final opponent is not your shadow, nor your ghost, nor your chaos. The final opponent is your own desperate, beautiful, and ultimately illusory need to remain ****. Lay down your arms. Let the walls crumble. Let the shell soften, for the death you are so afraid to die is the only thing standing between the seed and the sun. This is not a battle to be won, but a husk to be broken. So let this be the night you cease your war. Let this be the hour you lay down the weapons of a borrowed life. You have carried the ghosts, you have faced the shadow, you have entered the labyrinth, and felt the terrifying promise of your own disintegration. Now, you stand at the threshold, not of an ending, but of the only true beginning. The great work awaits not in a distant future, but in the silent, fertile ground of this present moment. You are no longer a prisoner of your history, a servant to your distractions, or a spectator to your own life. You are the architect of your cathedral, the redeemer of your lineage, the conductor of your symphony. You are the one who turns the lead of your pain into the gold of your presence. You have faced the ghost in the machine and discovered the indomitable spirit that can never be replicated. You have learned the ultimate courage, the courage to fall apart, so that you may be remade, whole, and unstoppable. Go forth from this place, not as who you were, but as who you have always been, beneath the fear, the noise, and the old, tired stories. The world does not need your perfection. It needs your passion, your depth, your scars, and your radiant, broken, and reassembled heart. Go forth and be the impossible, glorious, and undeniable truth of you. There is no more battle to fight. There is only the life to be lived. Go live it. Thank you, and good luck on the greatest adventure of all.